Morning at NTV.
A very good morning. We're glad you're still with us on Morning at NTV. If you are just joining us, welcome on board. You find us at the Kickstarter segment where we are trying to understand dynamics of personal security in light of the incident yesterday morning in which the State Minister for Labour, Charles Okello Oriem, was gunned down by his own bodyguard, according to reports. The circumstances of this very tragic incident are full of speculation. Witness accounts have been varying, and of course verification of exactly what happened from the very first point to the last is something that is still ongoing. Investigations have been launched by the police, and we shall be waiting on for that particular report. But in studio this morning, I'm joined by a security analyst, Grace Masiko, who will be helping us understand what could have been at play, especially the state of mind of this particular officer who gunned down the minister and also tragically took his own life. Is it a microcosm of what could be happening within the force? Are officers grappling with issues, including stress, that they are failing to address? Or is it a simple case of a wayward individual who simply failed to act professionally? A very warm welcome to the program, Grace Masiko.
Thank you.
How are we doing?
Very fine. Good morning, viewers. Good to join you.
There's a lot that has been said. The circumstances of the tragic death of the State Minister for Labour, Employment and Industrial Relations, retired Colonel Charles Okello Engola. There is so much that we are yet to independently verify as the media, especially the state of mind of the officer who carried out this attack. He's been named as AD Camp Ronald Otim. AD Camp Ronald Otim sustained injuries, but Sabiti died after, of course, taking his own life. Before I ask the specific questions, what's your take on this tragedy?
In the first place, this is a tragic event for this country. And on a personal level, I happen to know the late, having participated with him in the peace talks between Ugandan government and the Road Resistance Army. I moved with him to Garamba, where we met Joseph Kony, and I really have those personal memories, and I think it's really tragic for the country and also for the people.
Really sorry for
the
loss.
People he is representing. It also takes us back to, as a country, I think we need to think collectively. We must have a collective security as opposed to personal security.
Okay. Yes. No, that's a new dynamic I'm encountering.
Yeah.
Collective security,
yes,
as opposed to personal security.
Yes.
Of course, the former being a guarantor of the latter.
Exactly.
Okay.
Given that, I think we should review our national security posture. Other than the president and the vice president and the prime minister, maybe the speaker of parliament, I think really we don't need to emphasize much on having personal bodyguards. At times I just look at the convoys moving and I just pity the people who think they have got better security than
others, because they have a huge
yes, because if you have 30 bodyguards or security detail, I mean, I don't think they have even vetted those people. Because the vetting really is a bit of, it's too detailed that you have to know every detail of every person on that convoy.
Okay.
So if you really have this feeling that you have got the huge security ring around you, it means how protected you are not. it's
of course.
just
Yesterday's incident shows that you're actually not protected because
you're not,
the people who are supposed to secure you
yes,
are actually your threat.
exactly.
Okay.
So we need to really, as a country, and I think the leadership out there are listening to this program, that we need really to review as a country what we are doing. We need to think that everyone should be secure at all times.
Okay.
The VIPs we are seeing, sure, they have to be part of the national collective security arrangement, that we don't have to spend a lot of money on something that may not even be working as we think.
It's a bit of a contradiction hearing a security expert say we must not spend a lot of money on security.
No, actually, I'm not saying that. The security, in the first, I'm one person who supports that we must have enough. We should give security enough budget. But this budget should not only go into personal security. It should be for the whole national security setup. That we spending money, but this money should be for everyone's security.
Okay.
So Parliament should spend. The good thing is that what of recent we've noticed is that as opposed to the previous years, we used to have the army or security buying undersized uniforms, rotten food, but this story now has gone down.
That one has disappeared.
Also, it has disappeared thanks to the government. So now that we have reached this level of having plugged these loopholes within the defense expenditure, the money should be, the Parliament should give security and defense more money, more budget, so that we are now expanding from that personal level to everyone, including us in the studios, so that you walk out, you know that you are safe. But having one person given 30 armed escorts, commandos, and whatever, you are just trying to micromanage a situation that should not have been that.
Okay, that's a bigger debate because the security situation across the country, you say, requires a more holistic approach than one that pinpoints to particular individuals because they wield state or executive power. That is quite extensive in terms of a debate. Let me just zero down on yesterday's incident involving the minister. When a VVIP has been accorded security, it could be a contingent of 10, 15, I do not know the basics or the nitty-gritty. But for this particular minister, I do not want to preempt investigations by the police. We're glad this is not a judicial process, that we cannot actually divulge information. What could be on a daily in the morning if the minister is to wake up and is going to work? Take us through what happens around that time. The bodyguards, how do they come in? Who is directing who in terms of protocol, chief of staff? Is it the VVIP actually saying, this is where we're going, this is how we are going to do it? Or it's already rolled out and the chief bodyguard, so to speak, if that's the language used by the team, already knows what is going to happen? Who was Sabiti? Who was Otim on the entire team?
In the first place is that what happened in the morning yesterday, first of all, the previous evening, the aide camp, first of all, because he's a military person.
That's right.
He briefs the guards on what to do in the morning. So that briefing in the evening, the previous evening, forms what goes on the next day.
Yeah.
The principal, first of all, you must be at the place. You must have woken up, even if
much more earlier
than the principal. Or if they were staying very far, they must have reported on duty. and I'm sure even he must have had a vehicle maybe to pick them from somewhere and then drop them at the in the compound of at the residence. And then of course when they report, the aide camp, who will be the chief security officer for this principal, receives them, briefs them. But the household has already briefed them, the principal, that he will be departing, that to know his program. Yeah. So he gets ready, maybe he gets breakfast or whatever. Then the principal, the aide camp, tells him that they are ready to move. Because he's the aide camp manages the security, but also manages the time. Yeah. He's basically the chief of staff. The chief of staff. Yeah. So, so everything is what probably may a course of investigation, of course, is that.
Before you continue, I ask you that question because, as you've just told us that you knew retired Colonel Charles Okello Engola personally, having participated in the LRAP stocks. What I want to excavate right now is you could have had an opportunity to speak to either a relative or the family member on that point in time. Was it an altercation? Was it a misunderstanding? Before the officer, after shooting the minister, began to walk down to the salon where he eventually took his own life, did somebody wake up and all of a sudden, as they're entering the car, they are gunned down? We had a version where the minister was in the car and apparently came out to want to settle what could have been an argument. There's a lot that is going on. Just help us understand. You could have been privy to some of this information.
Yeah, incidentally, I had a lot of activities. I got distracted. I did not engage any family member. Oh, okay. But what would have been, I don't think a situation like that would have developed into an action without a precedent. Okay. But still, a human being is a human being. You can have a deceptive face even when you have other issues. But I would imagine this situation that the aide camp, he was also shot, must have been within the proximity
of the minister.
And that he must have, because this is his work, he must have noticed something that was unusual with the guard. That he can always, that's why he's there. Yeah, that's why he's there, to be able to. Because in most cases, we can look at a simple thing, a simple situation like rain. The principal can just wake up, he's in his house, he doesn't know the weather has changed out there. But the aide camp comes up with an umbrella. He would have read the situation. So in this situation, probably the aide camp I think maybe, still it has to be investigated, or it's an area of interest. What did he not do on his part? Yeah,
because I asked that question, my instincts as a journalist require me to understand, was this a premeditated murder? Did a bodyguard think about it, that I'm going to eliminate my principal? Was it a case of an accident that happened, and then in the process of trying to deal with the stress or the shock that comes with killing your principal, he began to go on rampage, more like to justify first to his own conscience that what he had done was not right, something that ended up in his own tragic, what I call right now should be suicide. He took his own life. Was it a way of failing to deal with what he had done? Because you don't plan, I'm going to kill my principal and then kill myself. Okay, it can happen. I'm not an expert on that.
I think this was a case of premeditated
murder, yeah.
When you look at the scenarios, shooting the minister, then walking all that way, even to the saloon,
and shooting
and
left, right, and center.
and even evacuating the saloon itself.
Yeah.
You see, and then shooting himself. It was something that he had in mind. He said, I will start like this and walk like this and end my life there. He did not shoot the people in the salon. And often we've seen cases where someone has shot some people and he wants to end his life. Most of these cases, that attempted, they don't succeed in most cases. In most cases. We've seen cases where someone has shot people and then he wants to end his life by shooting himself, but it doesn't work. Like a greater percentage does not succeed.
Oh,
but this one succeeded.
The point being, he succeeded in killing himself. That means the script was well written.
Exactly. So he knew where to shoot, and he knows that if I touch this one, this will be the end. And he was like very firm, you know, that you do it and it ends you. Most cases, they try to kill themselves and then maybe shooting another part of the body, and then they don't die immediately. So this was a well laid down plan that probably security detail of the minister should have noticed there is something which is not right. Yeah.
Of course, it's very difficult. According to the Minister for Labour, Betty Amongi, this particular guard had only spent 3 weeks on the team. So perhaps the AD camp, who is the chief of staff of the fleet, could have been still studying the new recruit, and of course that shows a loophole in how things are conducted.
Very true. That's why it calls for a question of vetting. You don't have to study. With security, you don't have to really gamble. You don't have to. Everything you're doing must be meticulous. It must be up to. You must have plugged all the loopholes. Having him for a month or whatever, it doesn't add up. What adds up is that this person, before he's welcomed into the security ring of the minister, was he vetted?
Okay.
Had they taken background check on this person? Or we have this feeling that oh yes, he trained as a UPDF, and you think he's the right person. He must have trained years ago.
What you're seeing there is a video, the very first of videos that came through of the officer there. And clearly I could see that those were more than 200 meters from the minister's residence. So he came shooting, holding the gun up in the air, and of course the residents, including those that had opened their shops early morning,
gun down,
hearing, had already made off. You don't stay around when an officer is on rampage like that. That is very chilling, and speaks pretty much of the state of mind of the officer, in this particular case, Sabiti, Private Sabiti. When you look at the state of mind of bodyguards, how can you tell, especially if you are AD camp, that an officer is stressed? And when you notice an officer is stressed, is it allowed to immediately excuse him from the team? How do the team leaders deal with such incidents before they can even get to the level that this one got to?
Actually, from when you look at that video and in the mental state, this person was already on rampage, and it's always the moment someone just fires one bullet,
One.
he goes into that state of violence. That's why even you advise that don't cock the gun.
Yeah.
Because you see, the moment you cock, you're already on the way to exit this bullet. And one bullet goes, so you can even go 100.
Are you suggesting, and that's a very important issue, especially to deal with at psychological level, that the moment a gun is cocked, the mind of the armed officer is ready to
fire?
Are we, let me just bring it home for the average viewer out there. If it were a car, are you saying that when you ignite, you cannot tell yourself or limit stepping on the gas? You can ignite a car and simply stay there. If it is a gun and you've shot one bullet, what does it do to the mind?
First of all, the operator of the gun knows how powerful the weapon he has.
Sure.
You see, it just fires the body, the mind. Unfortunately, of course, it can cause either death or injury or whatever. So it's not like a simple car. It's not like, you know, someone is already aware that I have something that can make me, especially if he maybe had other issues that overwhelmed him.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that.
So he gets into a situation that he wants to get on board of this situation. Above it, he wants to overcome this, but using the power of the gun, unfortunately.
Grace Masiko, I don't want to turn you into a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You're a security expert, but allow me go for a break. And when we return, we shall excavate a little bit more information for us to get to grips with the state of mind of Private Sabiti, who committed this heinous act and of course also tragically took his own life. We shall also be delving into what this means for the security apparatus in the country. Is it time to rethink approach? Live there from the home of the late minister, state minister, I must say, for Labour and Industrial Relations, Charles Okello Engola, who was gunned down in a very tragic incident yesterday morning. Of course, the killer there also taking his own life just a few minutes from the tragic death of the state minister. Let me return to studio. I have with me Grace Masiko, security analyst. We've also now been joined by another security analyst, Solomon Asimwe, to be able to help us come to terms, first and foremost, with the timeline of events and how it could have played out. It is very important to understand, especially in light of a report that Private Sabiti, while shooting in the air as he moved from the home of the late minister to the salon, which is about 200 meters away, where he took his own life, kept on lamenting about apparent lack of pay and other issues that seemed to be stressing him, and perhaps he had failed to come to terms with it. Is it a case of welfare? Is it a case of a soldier who is working but is unable to attend to the most basic of his own needs and his family's needs? That is a discussion, of course, that will continue, and other experts in the fields of psychology will be helping us as we go on. For now, the circumstances of the death of the minister. Let me begin with Solomon Asimwe, who's just joined us. We've had talk with Grace Masiko about the circumstances that could have ensued during that particular process. Before I ask you the specific questions, what came to your mind when news of the death of the minister began trickling in? A bodyguard killing a principal.
Yeah, thank you, Chris and NTV for having me. It's a tragic day, of course. I sympathize with the family and the government for the loss of our minister and who has served for a long time for this government. Yeah, what came to my mind was a problem and lack of proper order in as far as protection of VIPs or very important people in this country is concerned. Yeah, I asked myself, first of all, who was supposed to guard a minister? We need to answer that question. You know, I've heard many stories of welfare and whatever. Those can be answered by ministers responsible. But I think for us, we need to interrogate the issue. How is VIP protection handled in this country? How come some people are guarded by soldiers, others are by police? You see, VIP protection is a specialized provision of security. Some people must be trained, okay, and handled, and there must be proper command and control of such a people, okay, and who are assessed, who are checked every day, and to see that yes, this person is able to be a private or a guard of a minister or anybody else. So what came to my mind, and I think we need to interrogate, and the Parliament especially, which carries that oversight of government, should have asked such questions a long time ago. But it's never late. They can still ask those questions. Who has the responsibility of protecting our VIPs?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, and of course it brings to the spotlight the recruitment regime that is being rolled out. One thing that we do discover from today's reports in the newspapers is that Private Sabiti had worked as one of the bodyguards to Captain Mike Mukula, and Captain Mike Mukula is here quoted as saying, Sabiti had worked for me for 4 months, but I saw him as someone who was unstable and asked that he be withdrawn, meaning he was withdrawn from Mukula's security detail at the time of redeployment, or particular deployment to the late Minister Engola's security detail. I don't know whether he had passed the new set of protocol in light of being withdrawn from Mike Mukula. That's a question for the Uganda People's Defence Forces. But now, in light of your knowledge of the inner workings of the security apparatus, do you think he was taken through that process?
Now, that's a very interesting story again you are bringing up of a gentleman or a soldier who has been rejected from some other source. But of course there are mechanisms and procedures of training and disciplining. We may not be privy to that. They could have trained him, they could have disciplined him. But we should also think about the issue of what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. Management. You know, soldiers do a lot of things. This is a soldier. That's how I'm still going back to the point of who is guarding. Yeah. Soldiers' role, they protect the state against the enemy. And they fight, they do sort of things, they're in the wars, in the different operations. So we don't know where this guy was in an operation and being picked from there and he brought to become a bodyguard of someone. So I think that's, the ministry and the security officer and the government have something to handle there. These military officers who are being brought, their role is not supposed to be to carry out to guard actually. The guarding role, I'm told, it is under the police. CT, counter-terrorism protection, VIPP. There's another presidential police protection. All these forces, I don't know where they are. Those are the people who should be
providing security,
providing protection of VIPPs. And so if a soldier has been rejected from one century, from one principal, how do you bring him to another? This is a challenge. So there are many things to interrogate, especially the mental stability of this person. To me, I don't think the stories of welfare, which are being talked about.
No, that story comes up particularly because initial reports, not speculation, initial reports of the gentlemen and women who witnessed the drama as it unfolded, spoke of what he was saying as he shot in the air.
Yeah, that's true, Chris. What I'm saying, that's true. It could be, but I think it is bigger than that. Welfare, as we were discussing here during the break, it is not only in the military. I see this as a general problem in the country, the economy, all the sectors. They have issues. So it means, therefore, we must handle it. We must understand it better, more than how it is in police. Yeah,
when it comes to the economy, that is something I'll be asking you a little bit later, because the stresses do, of course, act on just about everybody. Let me return to Grace Masiko and recreate the scenario of the minister's tragic death. And I must be very specific. I'm not an expert at recreating these scenes, but in an incident where a guard, the aide-de-camp, who is the chief of staff, notices that my colleague is acting in a funny way, and then it moves from suspicion to actually seeing him get violent or threaten any one of them. It could be the principal, the minister, or one of his colleagues. Isn't one allowed to eliminate him in order to save the situation?
Actually, I think this is an area that should be, the investigators should look into. The good thing is that the aide-de-camp was survived. He can always give a proper explanation.
That's right.
I think the role of the aide-de-camp should have been, first of all, the protection of the principal and the security situation around him. As we've noticed and seen on the footages, is that this is something that was not spontaneous. It's something that had probably had a background. There must have been signs. Therefore, the principal, the aide-de-camp or whoever was in the minister's security detail should have acted, and very fast, and no minute. Elimination was the best way. It has happened, we've seen it before. Elimination of this person was the best, because he's armed, and in any case he must have even put his gun before cocking it.
Earlier, I had asked you a question, hoping that given your very intimate relationship with the late, having been together during the talks with the Lord's Resistance Army, you perhaps had spoken to one of the family members. There was a talk of an altercation regarding the flag, the one that is posted on the car, whether it was supposed to be released so that it's rolled out, or there was something about that, and it is that, I think, a failure to agree on how to go about it that caused trouble. And then the minister steps out of the car to come and perhaps find out what is happening, and there it was. But anyway, those are details that shall be emerging. Do you have an idea? Have you spoken to anyone?
Yeah, but no, I want to explain something about that. The aide-de-camp, or what role I should have done. What I see there, everything went wrong.
Very tragic indeed.
The security of the minister, again, we're looking at issues of training, issues of preparation. Whose gun was this? This is something we have not known. Whose gun? Is it the soldier's gun? Did he disarm another person? But again, where is the other detail of the minister? I'm told the minister has a follow car. Where are these soldiers? Where were they? I never saw any reaction, anybody reacting after this man was shooting. We never, unless the video didn't bring it out. Yes. The man went on shooting alone up to the saloon. But I'm told the minister has a follow car, he has other soldiers. Where were they to react? So what I'm trying to say is some poor work here in terms of the people who are responsible to protect the minister. And it goes back to what I'm saying, that they are not well trained. They don't know how to protect these VIPs, how to react. The aide-de-camp's role should have been to analyze situations, to know the people he's working with, even to know their mental stability. He should have known that.
You know, I think, as you said, this should really bring us to as a country having such failures? Because I mean, you cannot guarantee. We have a cabinet of about 85 ministers. We cannot guarantee even if we try to give an assumption that we've deployed a lot of guards around them. We cannot guarantee. So the best way is we have to still look as a nation. Do we have collective security so that everyone is safe wherever we are, despite these shortcomings on individual levels, so that we minimize such incidences. But we may also notice that being a soldier, you are trained to, during the training, they are given that security that the training is that you are protecting the country. You're not protecting an individual.
Yeah, sure.
You see? So for you to have been, to have migrated this person from the national security role to a personal security role, I mean, there must have been an integration mechanism,
yes.
A migration mechanism that this person is prepared to do this work.
In other words, what I gather, rather, not even trying to, but what I gather from your submissions is that a soldier who has taken time without being deployed might have gotten disengaged in a way.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. You see, even if you came from training today, you've been trained today.
That's right.
Your training is that you are protecting the country as a soldier. But for you to be given to protect an individual, there must be some mechanism that can make you migrate professionally and leave the mindset that this is the role I have.
Okay.
So to add what my colleague is saying is, yeah, he's right. As I said at the beginning, VIPP protection is a specialized role. So we should understand that not every soldier, not everybody is supposed to provide this protection, guarding. But what we have, either because of scarcity or because of structural, institutional problems, you find anyone just pick soldiers, because most especially these soldiers to guard them. They are not trained in surveillance, they are not trained in how to handle these situations, they just pick them. As he says, this person was trained to fight, to protect the country from an enemy and whatever. Now you want to train him, yes, you can transform him from that to a role of guarding, but can he go through special training? The whole detail should have been there.
In other words, what I also gather is that a soldier who has been at the battlefront might not necessarily make a good bodyguard.
No. Exactly.
Okay? No. Because that kind of soldier is either trigger happy, or his natural instinct in reacting is to cock the gun and face the enemy. So when you bring them into another role where they do not have to use the gun often, they try to find reasons to use it. Interesting there. Solomon, you spoke about a national problem and that we shouldn't look at the Gadi's actions as something that is isolated. You are afraid that a teacher could one of these days bounce on a student and beat them up.
Yeah, because of
you're afraid that the doctor could also get angry and instead of using the right medicine or syrups or injection on the patient could use something. Have we reached this level?
Yeah, thank you very much. These are issues we should predict, and our security officials should start also profiling. Yeah, I think the economy is not doing well to many people, many other sectors. That's why I'm saying that we should not look at this private
as an isolated one.
As an isolated issue. You have had cries from teachers, you have had cries from medics. In private universities where we work, universities are not able to pay. So we are going to see some of these people also jumping on their students and beating them because of some of these. So issues are beyond that. And I think, for example, one may ask the man if it is true he was crying about school fees and what. This is a gentleman who is getting little money and going in the economy, the same market with the general, the same market with other people. Yeah, but I think there must be some security reform systems where these officers are given some amenities. How do they educate their children? How do they get food? By the way, again on VIPP, you see, as I said, a VIPP must be well facilitated according to the person is protecting. You are protecting a minister, you are supposed to be equipped to the extent that this means that when he goes to Serena, you are also able to sit in Serena and have a cup of tea in Serena. Have we reached those levels? So, those are issues.
Yeah. Earlier in the show, we were speaking, and my colleague Priscilla Regina Naloga said that some of the drivers actually sit in the cars outside the hotels for hours waiting on the minister as they go about with the meetings. And that, of course, is very telling of the kind of situation many could be going through. But like you said, it is a microcosm and could be something that the nation ought to give a little bit of attention to. Gentlemen, many thanks for the perspectives and the insight into this very tragic incident. I do hope that our viewers have had something to think about, but most importantly also go into the minds of some of the people that could be out there, especially when it comes to conduct and professionalism. For those that are seeking to make points with regard to what happened yesterday, we beg, and I must be very specific, that we practice Ubuntu. Let's be able to feel each other's pain. Right now, the family of the late minister is going through untold grief, and to be able to dramatize that very condition is a very shameful one indeed. So for those that are spreading memes and doing all sorts of unguarded content generation, please do desist from that act. Here on NTV, we do condemn those acts, and we shall not be able to amplify any of those. Grace Masiko and Solomon Asime, thank you very much. That will do it for the Kickstarter discussion. I hope that later you'll be able to understand a little bit more about the circumstances that led to the minister's death, especially as the police reveals some of that information. I'll leave it at that and allow my colleague Priscilla Regina Naloga to come forth and take us through yet again another discussion, just to give you a bit of what's going to be